to Richard Power Syeed. He's a former Labour Party official. He's also author of the book 1997, The Future That Never Happened, A History of New Labour. A very good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us. It's quite interesting that this is a big headline in the Mail today talking about Labour set to enable stealth tax hikes for millions of voters, denying them a vote in next year's council elections. This is all part of Angela Rayner's devolution revolution. Yesterday announced creating more directly elected mayors, or basically having powers to impose what they call a mayoral precept on top of council tax for large parts of England, but also a lot of strategic authorities covering areas replacing two-tiered councils mean that we might need authorities to delay elections currently online for early May next year. Is this just sort of making a mountain out of a molehill, so getting 2 + 2 and having it equal 57, or have they got a fair case here?
I mean, it's not particularly surprising that Angela Rayner comes up with a really good and popular policy and then the Daily Mail dumps on it with absolute nonsense, is it?
Is it a popular policy? Do people feel strongly about this?
I think most people want devolution. Not everybody, I accept that, most people. And you know what? It's a quite a kind of joint Tory Labour thing, right? You know, a lot of this came from George Osborne, probably the one good thing he did. So we want devolution. And obviously we want our mayors, our local representatives, to have some power. So most people agree it's a good thing that mayors have some control over taxes. That has been the case for a very long time.
I'm wondering whether people do think that, given that most people don't even bother voting in local mayoral elections. I mean, where we have directly elected mayors, I mean, most people don't even bother voting.
Okay, well, look, that's an interesting question, but the thing that Rayner is being accused of, absolute nonsense, is a stealth tax and not giving people control over this. What's gone on, right, is she said, we're going to give local representatives the choice about whether they want to create a mayoralty in their area. If we didn't allow those new mayors to have the powers that the existing mayors had, then, I mean, people would be...
Okay, fair enough. The main issue we've got, of course, is local councils with any sort of local taxes. Of course, actually, the amount of funding from central government to local councils has plummeted, I think, by more than 60%. And, of course, we've got all these extra costs of national insurance rises for employers and minimum wage and things like that, which have bumped up costs for local councils. But they haven't got extra money, which is why we see council taxes going up. But it is different in different areas, isn't it? And often, you know, some quite poor areas don't put it up, some richer areas do. Often it does depend on the political makeup of the council and how well it's run.
Well, I mean, you could say that that's local democracy in action. I'm not saying...
But hold on a minute. On one level it is, but there's also an element where people don't go, oh, my local council tax has gone up by X amount, I'm going to move to a different borough. People don't just move, so they don't get a say if their local council doesn't do a good job.
Well, no, they do, because they can vote for them.
I live in Camden Council. Doesn't matter how I vote, I'm going to end up with another Labour council that doesn't empty my bins.
Oh, well, I'm glad to know that you've got such fine local representative despite your best efforts, Julia. I mean,
doesn't matter who I vote for, they're not going to empty my bins often enough.
Well, indeed, and that's because George Osborne stole all of their money, and that's why you've got potholes, and that's why you've got local libraries shutting down. I mean, one of the preposterous things about what Rayner is being criticised for in this Daily Mail article is the idea that, you know, apparently, if you have a new mayoralty coming, you shouldn't delay your local elections. You should just have an election this coming year, and then immediately you're going to have a new election because you've got a new mayor coming in. I mean, it would be a proper kind of Brenda from Bristol moment. Everyone would be...
Oh, no, not another one.
Exactly. I mean, this is... Angela Rayner is somebody who divides people because she speaks it like it is, and she's got great policies, and, you know, funnily enough, the Daily Mail doesn't like it.
No, well, look, I'm in favour of the house building. I know a lot of my audience aren't. I mean, again, I think we could build nicer houses, and I think there's a way of getting these houses through and actually, you know, when people actually do, you know, where they do want them and how they do want them. But again, we need the infrastructure as well. I still doubt that that's going to be done. I don't think they're going to achieve those housing targets. I just don't know anyone who thinks you know what my top priority is for this government, given all the things that are going wrong with this country, you know what I think we need to do? I think we need to change the way we have district councils. I just don't think there's anyone that this is even in the top 4,000 million of their priorities that need to be done in this country. You say it's a popular policy. It's not.
I think that you are totally right that most people don't consider bureaucratic reorganisations to be the most exciting kind of thing that a politician could do. I think there's a difference between that and it not having an impact on people's lives. We generally accept in this country that the way the state is organised isn't particularly effective. It results in policy errors. And you know what? More local decisions being made locally, I think, is probably quite a good way of avoiding that.
Yeah, when we have local decisions made locally, we often end up with the situation we go, we've got a postcode lottery, and then people complain, and then it goes back to the centre and it comes back down again. I mean, if local people don't like the local decisions, they actually often, in most cases, don't have a choice about changing the local council, as I said, in my local area.
OK, but I mean, no individual has the power to change the council, but we do collectively. That's how representative.
Yes, I know, and I understand that, but I'm just saying that people don't. If you say local power, but to a certain extent, in most areas, you know, again, you put a red rosette on a councillor, they're going to get elected in their local council. You put a blue rosette, they're going to get elected. In which case, people don't feel they do get that sort of change. Let me ask you about something else there, because Kemi Badenoch has indicated, we're told, I'm always worried about indicated. She said that the idea that a simpler, flatter tax system was very attractive, and she said a future Tory government would first cut government spending dramatically before they would ever think about making a single rate tax system affordable. Now, a number of countries, you know, Eastern European countries have flat rate taxes. Hungary, Romania and Estonia, where basically there's not been a very strong history of collecting taxes post-communism. Do you think a flat tax has any appeal? I mean, we got VAT, that's effectively a flat tax, but when it comes to income tax and corporation tax, we largely do it on the basis of how much money people have got.
Well, hiking taxes for the poor and cutting taxes for the rich is exactly what you'd expect from Kemi Badenoch. Luckily, she's never going to become Prime Minister. But it's absolutely
very confident of that.
I feel very confident that everyone in Tory HQ saw this and went, oh, not another one. I mean, it's so bad. It's such bad politics, right? You know, Kemi Badenoch, she's got one job. She's got to keep together the Tory party's electoral coalition and bring back in those reform voters who are more motivated by cultural conservatism and who either hold their nose at or ignore the fact that Nigel Farage is an economic libertarian who doesn't care about working class people and only cares about cutting taxes for the rich. Now,
well, there's a lot of people argue that cutting taxes for the rich also actually helps jobs, which helps working class people.
I mean, that's not what you see in most countries where they cut taxes for the rich, right? You know, it increases GDP sometimes. Not always, sometimes it increases GDP, but the money that GDP represents goes to the wealthy and to the shareholders, and it doesn't go to working class people who are actually making the
I think most people in this country would like lower taxes for everybody, but we'll have to leave it there. Time is against us.